Hi, this is James Headley. Welcome back to the Living in Savannah channel. In my previous professional life, I had the good fortune and pleasure of working with a very visionary serial entrepreneur. And one of his interesting perspectives that struck me at the time and has stuck with me was his characterization of contracts as sales and marketing tools first and foremost, and legal documents secondarily. So while I'm not going to understate the legal importance of a home purchase contract, I want to spend some time today discussing the nature of the Georgia Purchase and Sales Agreement, particularly those elements that buyers should understand and potentially consider as leverage points when making an offer on a new home, especially in a low inventory market, such as the one we've been experiencing for quite some time now at the landings. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, liking, subscribing, and sharing. And with that, let's jump right into a discussion of the Georgia property contracts. And all of this with the caveat that I am not an attorney. You have to use an attorney actually in the state of Georgia to close. So certainly, don't take my advice on the contract. Read the contract. Work with your own personal attorney or consult with the attorney that we can connect you with here for closing. But all of that said, from a big picture perspective, hopefully this discussion will be helpful and give you a bit of perspective, whether you've bought and sold homes elsewhere or this is a first-time purchase for you here in the state of Georgia. And I also want to take a perspective here really for the remote buyer as much as anything else. Certainly this will apply, of course, whether you're remote or local here, but when working with so many out-of-town buyers who are looking to purchase on Skidaway Island, it can be helpful to understand how the contract can work for you as well as against you so that you can emphasize those strengths and downplay some of the weaknesses. So with that, let me dive right in on some of those areas in the contract that you should be aware of and talk a bit about how we best leverage them. First, of course, price. Don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but of course you're putting out what that number is that you're willing to go to purchase the home. And as I've discussed elsewhere, we can talk about negotiating and what kind of number makes sense in this marketplace. Of course, home to home, very, very specific discussion around that. Beyond price, though, another interesting area and an area that we can leverage for and against, or can be leveraged for and against, is the closing date. How long are you going to take from the time of when you make that offer, and hopefully it's accepted, to the point when you are ready and willing to close on the home and likely take possession of the home. For many buyers, and in more stable markets, often a quick time to close is what a seller is looking for. So if you are prepared to close in 30 days or so, that's a good number to be thinking about as a general idea. However, again, in a tight market and in a market where there are sellers who maybe aren't 100% set on where they're going to be going, or as we find here in the landings, we do have some buyers in an older demographic who are looking to make the move from their single-family home into perhaps assisted living, and they're on a wait list. So if you are flexible on that time to close, perhaps something like up to 90 days or up to 120 days, then that can also be a plus, depending upon who that seller is and what the particular circumstances are. But the bottom line is that if you have some flexibility in terms of time to close, that can be a real plus for you as a prospective buyer, particularly if you're getting into obviously multiple offer situations, which are sort of underlying all of this idea of negotiating from a position of strength. Another timeline-related item in the contract to be aware of is the due diligence period. So the standard Georgia Purchase and Sales Agreement has a due diligence period built into it. We can set what that timeline looks like. 10 days to 2 weeks, 15 days, something like that is fairly typical. Nothing is set in stone. A shorter due diligence period, again, is in this case is almost always a positive for a seller. They're going to look on that because as you are in that point of being under contract but being in the due diligence phase, as a buyer, you, unless it's been stipulated differently in your particular contract, you have the opportunity to back out of that contract, cancel that contract at any time with no penalty. So you would get all of your earnest money deposit back. So really, again, so from a remote buyer perspective, this is an opportunity to perhaps put an offer on a home. We set up inspections. You come down during that inspection period, and of course that's during the due diligence period. Have a look at the home. Make sure that it is exactly what you're looking for. Hopefully we've done a good job of understanding what you're looking for, and through video tours, etc., and our discussions, hopefully we aren't at a point where it's completely different than what you think it is or what you're looking for. But if there is a situation where you need to back out, that due diligence period does give you that opportunity to do so with no direct penalty. I say no direct. If you've paid for an inspection and we've gone through the inspection, of course that'll be a minimal charge, but in the hundreds of dollars. But it's better to lose those few hundred dollars than it is, of course, to be in a position where you're losing out on a large earnest money deposit, or you're forced to move forward with the purchase of a home that you don't necessarily love. So the due diligence period is another key aspect in the contract and something to be aware of that we can use for our advantage. But just know that, again, from a seller perspective, they're going to generally want a much shorter due diligence period because the home is off the market during that period. It's pending, so it's not active. They can still show, but it's going to be less likely that there will be that kind of interest and that kind of opportunity to move forward. And the last item I want to talk about are contingencies, and these can range across the board, any number of things, but some of the big contingencies that might be in place or that you might need to introduce into contract negotiations would be, for example, a contingency on the sale of your current home. Imagine you're a seller and you have a couple of prospective buyers coming to you, and one of them has offered you the price you want, short due diligence period, but they're saying that the purchase of their home is contingent upon you as the buyer selling your home in pick your particular locale. That introduces an amount of risk and uncertainty, and also a bit of uncertainty around time as well. That's going to be seen as a negative for that seller, all other items being equal. You can help on this front, certainly help on this front if the home is already under contract. We'll send a redacted version of that contract to the seller. If you're past any contingency dates, any due diligence dates on your end, that's also another plus. All of those items we can massage. Not to say that you can't have a contingency on the sale of your home and successfully be able to negotiate a sales agreement on a home here at the landings, but just be aware that those are some of the hurdles that we'll have to overcome and massage our way through, but we can get there. So I hope this is helpful to you to have a basic understanding of what you're looking at from a contractual standpoint when you do decide to make an offer on a home here. Here to work with you every step of the way, talk with you about these and other aspects of the contract itself, and again, how we can best position ourselves using that contract to negotiate for you to acquire that dream home here at the landings or elsewhere. And so bottom line, please do reach out anytime. Happy to discuss this and any other items with you about real estate here locally. And of course, again, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.